G2G importation that is now being processed by the DTI PITC, and the other interventions like the Rice Resiliency project that have been funded out of the Bayanihan Act for this pandemic. And we have a law of 69 days to last. This is, if you look at the whole year inventory for 2020, we have these four scenarios, Mr. President. So it's from 69 days to as high as shown this year, Mr. President, from a low of 191 days to last by the end of this year. Again, looking at various permutations here to include calamities, it's the effects of various calamities, including that of some imports. So we have a high of 237 days to last for corn, which means this is the corn, yellow corn that's being used in livestock production, Mr. President. The next one is on fisheries. This is one area that there is a big challenge. Fisheries has not really grown that much all these years. We would like to believe na this time around we should be trying to strengthen a good number of the various subsectors under fisheries, like aquaculture, of course, coastal fishing by the coastal fishers, and the commercial fishers for that matter. So here, if we only depend on local production, Mr. President, will be negative 33 days by the end of the year. But if we look at other areas and with mitigation plans in some of the scenarios, we will be marginally surplus from 29 days to 34 days, Mr. President. For pork supply, as you are all aware, Mr. President, we have been affected by the African swine fever up until today. And as you have seen, Luzon is badly hit and some parts of Mindanao. So we might have negative 31 days by the end of the year. But looking at interventions from reprogrammed budget, we are hoping that in ASF-free areas, we can revive the hog industry so that we can have about 40 to 80 days to last by the end of this year. For chicken, this is one commodity, Mr. President, that we have enough supply, a minimum of 160 days by the end of this year to as high as 314 days, Mr. President. Now, for vegetable supply and demand outlook, this is also one area. Again, if we go by 20% production decline, negative 4 days, by 30% production decline, negative 39 days. But of course, with some import arrivals, we will have about 2 months days to last by the end of 2020. Now, garlic for one. This is one area that we are not really producing enough. We are not doing good enough. And we are only producing about 6 to 8% of our domestic requirement. So we will have to defer or depend from imports in this regard. The next one is on onions. We are only producing about as high as 85% of our domestic requirement, Mr. President. So in general, again, to summarize, the food sufficiency outlook, this is the best scenario for the various basic commodities, 94 days for rice, 237 for corn, 34 fisheries, pork, 80 days, chicken, 314, vegetable, 67 days, negative 190 days for garlic, onion, negative 15. Middle scenario would include you, this is the data, and the worst scenario, for that matter, next, we have for rice, 69 days, 91 for corn, fisheries negative 33, negative 31 for pork, chicken 160, vegetables negative 39, and the rest negative for garlic on onion. Now, Mr. President,
Secretary,
yeah, we would like to
contained in the reports that you gave us, because it's quite lengthy, but if it's contained with what we have submitted to us, then all of the senators have a copy already and are aware of this. So you may wrap up if you want. Secretary Dar, please.
Okay, I may want to give you what we have done next po. Ito po, we have spent for the last 2 months about plan, particularly for urban agriculture, 399 million pesos and serving 1 million households. Next one is Kadiwa, Nihani at Kita. Among many other mechanisms here, we also have LGUs procuring nationwide for their food packs, 2.24 billion. So we have here a total of 5.48 billion sales of fruits and vegetables coming from Benguet, Nueva Vizcaya, and the other provinces. Mr. President, we have estimated number of households served in NCR, almost 1 million, 442 participating agri-fishery cooperatives and the like. Next slide. Next. I would like to now give you the new development framework with which we are now anchoring our stimulus program. And this is what and grow afterwards. So this is our socioeconomic recovery and resiliency strategy. We have various strategies, we have various enablers and key results areas. Mr. President, we have submitted a stimulus package for agriculture worth 66 billion, and we are also strongly supporting the Balik Provincia program. And above all this, we are putting up the integrity circles for agriculture. This is all about good governance. This is all about monitoring and evaluation so that every peso that is spent for agriculture is properly accounted for. So together we act, win, and heal as one. Marami pong salamat po, Ginoong Senate President and the members of the Senate. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Dar. And finally, we've already received also documents and briefing papers from the Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education. So may we just hear a very short opening statement from the JED? Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Senate President, other members of the Senate, my colleagues in the Cabinet. I have a short presentation that I am going to run. It has been submitted to the Senate earlier, so let me just run it quickly. From March to May 2020, the Commission issued 6 advisories after every IATF set of recommendations to the President and after executive orders have been issued. These include advisories related to suspension of classes, adoption of flexible learning systems, adoption of health protocols in higher education institutions, moratorium on payment of tuition fees, the closing of semesters for universities, adjustments in requirements for internship and OJT, and coordination with local government units. Specifically, there were 4 IATF decisions specific to higher education. The first is allowing classes in areas under GCQ for students who submit requirements, computation of grades, and issuance of credentials. Allowing higher education institutions to have skeletal force in areas under GCQ in order to accept student requirements, issue credentials, and prepare for the opening of classes in August. an IATF decision on the policy of opening classes, and last, a policy on higher education institutions in MGCQs. Specifically, in terms of issues and challenges from March until May, there are 4 areas that I would like to report. The issues related to the commission itself, issues related to students, issues related to public universities, and issues related to private universities. Let me go through them one by one. For the commission, the biggest problem that the commission faced is when it shifted to home and skeletal workforce in the central and regional offices. We realized that while technology is useful to continue meetings, it was difficult to do it because of the differential levels of technology in the central offices and in the regional offices. We use our regional offices to anchor meetings with higher education institutions, to gather data, to disseminate information, and to respond to complaints. We participated in all IATF meetings to make sure higher education is included in the discussions. We submitted reports to the President, and in every oversight report to Congress, there was a report about what the Commission did. And as I said earlier, the major problem is differential access and use of technology. And we also realized that the Commission, much like most government agencies, was not fully prepared for business continuity and contingency planning. As far as higher education students are concerned, the biggest problem was in terms of using flexible learning because of the connectivity problem for students in many areas, the preparedness of faculty and students to immediately transition to online and blended learning, and disadvantaged students and HEI personnel, particularly those who are displaced. The second set of problems encountered by students was the difficulty in paying tuition fees during the lockdown, and questions whether students should continue to pay fees for school activities that did not happen. We prevailed upon private universities not to collect tuition fees during the quarantine. The third major problem encountered by students was the huge number of stranded students. Overseas, more than 1,000 students are still, and faculty members are still in different countries. We have been able to repatriate 321 of them with the help of the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Department of Tourism, and the DOLE OWA. Locally, 9,000 plus students put online that they wanted to go home. These are stranded students doing internship or OJT, stranded due to the quick lockdown, which means after Metro Manila was put on lockdown, they couldn't go home because the respective local governments also instituted lockdowns. The lack of transportation, if we try to move them, and the refusal of local governments to accept them. We have initiated the Hatid Estudyante program together with the Department of Transportation, DepEd, and DILG, and the number of validated students who are stranded is closer to 6,000 once we validated it. The fourth problem encountered by students was licensure exams during and after ECQ. We have worked with the PRC so that all licensure exams until June have been canceled, and all licensure exams that are only done once a year will be rescheduled within the year. The other area that we are working with the PRC now is to look at the requirements of the degree programs that have licensure exams. Because of the shortened semester, some of the requirements to graduate for certain degree programs that have licensure exams have to be adjusted accordingly. For public universities, during the quarantine, most public universities produced COVID-related products for frontline workers, for local governments, for government agencies, and local communities. We are happy for this development because instead of relying on the market and competing for the scarce resources, for the scarce products, most of our more than 50 state universities and colleges produce alcohol, alcohol, face masks, face shields, and PPEs. So they were able to give this free of charge to our frontline workers and local governments. Public universities also did their best to adjust and prepare so they can close the semester. Some of our public universities worked with local governments to establish quarantine centers. And we also realized that most higher education institutions are not prepared for business continuity and contingency planning. So what did we do as far as higher education institutions and concerns? The challenges identified in continuing learning and closing the semester was the basic problem. This was because different higher education institutions had different academic calendars. Those that are using the old calendar, meaning they started in June, had little difficulty in closing the semester because their semester ended in March. This includes 74% of all private universities that are still using the old calendar. So for these universities, it was not a problem to close the semester because when ECQ was imposed on March 15, they were about to close the school year anyway. The problem was for higher education using the new calendar, and this is from August to July, because they were in their midterms when ECQ was imposed, and we had to allow them to continue the semester. Most of the HEIs using the new calendar are state universities and colleges. So we issued advisories to allow maximum flexibility for universities to adjust their academic calendar, adjust the course requirements, adjust internship and OJT requirements through the use of flexible learning systems.
Chairman De Vera?
Yes, Senate President.
We understand that what you're presenting is already with us. You're on page 9 out of 20 pages. So can you just wrap up, please? That we're aware already of what you have submitted. All of us.
So I will just focus, Senate President, on the opening of classes because I think that is the area that needs some discussion.
Very good. Go ahead.
For the opening of classes, the considerations made in deciding when to open classes was basically 4. One is the differences between K-12 and higher education. Number 2, online learning and flexible learning. Number 3, the preparedness for school opening. And 4th, the impact of school opening on public and private universities. The Commission, when it submitted to the IATF its proposal, said that policies for K-12 must be different from the policies for higher education. This is because in K-12, 27.8 million students are coming back, while in higher education, there's only 2.9 million students. So the magnitude of students coming back and the problem of reinfection is easier to handle in higher education institutions. The second one is because there are differences in the use of flexible learning options used before, during, and after ECQ. The concern for reinfection is anchored on the belief that higher education institutions will open with face-to-face or residential learning. The Commission uses the term flexible learning. This is a system where the design and delivery of programs, courses, and learning interventions address the students in terms of the place where they will do their learning, the pace of learning, the process of learning. It uses both digital and non-digital technology, covers both residential and non-residential learning. It is more encompassing than online. Flexible learning, which we are asking the universities to do, is designed to make higher education institutions COVID resilient. We do this because many higher education institutions have been doing online learning even before ECQ. De La Salle St. Benil, for example, announced the other day that they're offering 20-degree programs using pure online learning starting July. Many others have been using flexible learning. And other institutions are going to do this in September. It is also because the universities are heavily investing in making sure health protocols, crisis management, and communication plans are being developed to prepare for the school year. The policy, therefore, that we proposed and which was adopted by the IATF was to adopt a rolling opening of classes based on education delivery mode, compliance with health protocols, and situation on the ground. HEIs using full online education can open anytime. Those using flexible learning system can open in August 2020. Those that will use significant residential or face-to-face mode can open in September or even later. There will be no full residential classes until August. Private universities are being encouraged to change their academic calendar and open in August, and everyone must comply with all required protocols. And the Commission will review conditions on the ground and continue discussions with higher education institutions until the opening of classes. So, Mr. President, those are the highlights of what we are going to do between now and the opening of classes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman. There are a number of questions that I'm sure will be posed there. As a matter of fact, I have my own, but I will leave it to the members of the Senate because there are two senators who are very much interested, at least two. So they will be coming second and third in the list today. So first on the list is Senator Cynthia Villar. You are recognized. Senator Cynthia Villar, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first question I will ask is for the Department of Labor and Employment.
The DOLE
Dole.
is there. Maybe know if Secretary Bello is here.
Sabi nandyan siya.
Diyan, ano? Nandiyan. Go ahead. You have 10 minutes, Senator Villar.
What is the projected level of unemployment na ini-expect ng DOLE? Because I read a McKinsey study that there are 42 million workers employed in the Philippines, and the DOF projected 1.5 million ang malilay off. DOLE projected 2.5 million malilay off. But in McKinsey study, it's 24% of the 22 million employed by the private companies, which is around 5 million, and 21% employed by the SMEs na owner-owned. Kaya konti ang ma-unemploy kasi owner-owned. 11%, that's 2.5 million. So it's something like 7.5 million. So I just want them to comment if what is correct and what is wrong.
Right, Secretary Bello.
Nadinig ba?
Your Honor, can I have the question again, Your Honor?
May McKinsey study na lumabas na pinanood ko that there are 42 million employed in the Philippines. Sabi nila 24% of the 22 million na employed by the private sector will be laid off. So that's around 5 million. And then 21% of the SMEs or owner-owned company na 21 million, 11% ang malilay off. So if you add them, that's 7.5 million. Ang projection ng DOF, 1.5 million. Ang projection mo, 2.5 million. Eh, ang kanilang projection, 7.5 million. Sino ang tama dito?
Your Honor, yung 2.6 million is not an estimate, Your Honor. That is the actual number of workers displaced either because of temporary closure or because of the flexible work arrangement. But our estimate, Your Honor, our estimate is that we may go as high as 5 million, Your Honor.
Oh, but ang estimate nila is 7.5. 7.5 million. 5 million from the private sector and 2.5 from those owned by the owner-owned or SMEs. So, may conflict kayo. So, I guess I will give you the McKinsey study and maybe you can review if there will be what will be correct. Diba? I'll send you the McKinsey study because it is higher. Now, my next question is, nakita ko doon sa study ng DOF, magkakaroon tayo ng emergency employment, di ba? Para ma-cover natin yung mga ma-unemploy during this recession. Okay? So, anong level of emergency employment ang ibibigay nyo because of this recession?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, we were able to provide emergency employment, Your Honor, to about 335,000 workers, Your Honor. These are the informal workers, Your Honor.
Pero ang projection is 5 million. Ikaw, ang McKinsey, they projected 7.5 million. Ano gagawin ng the rest of the people?
Ang problema kasi, Your Honor, is that while we projected a bigger number of informal workers to be affected by the COVID pandemic, ang problema, Your Honor, is that we ran out of fund allocation. And that is...
Ikaw, I will ask your opinion. What is better, to provide emergency employment o mamigay ng pera na SAP?
I do not wish to denigrate the other program, Your Honor, but I would prefer to give our workers work so that they will get paid, Your Honor.
Yeah. And ang problema ng SAP, siguro alam nila yung listahan ng 4.5 million, but they do not know that list of the rest, di ba? So doon nagkakaproblema yung pag-distribute ng the rest kasi wala naman tayong national ID system. We do not know the rest. So, kaya ang nabibigyan minsan hindi yung tamang nangangailangan, di ba? Okay. Can we review that policy?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. It is worth looking into it, Your Honor.
Okay. Then my next question is with DSWD. Okay, nandyan sila, di ba? DSWD.
I'm sorry, Senator Cynthia, the SWD is not here today.
Okay. I will go to DTI. DTI.
Yeah, is here, Secretary Lopez.
My question. Kasi ngayon,
Ang napuputol, Senator.
I'm okay.
Okay na.
Ang rule natin sa ITF, di ba? That restaurant and food food businesses will just be open for deliveries.
Yes, ma'am.
Diba? But you know, naawa ko doon sa mga restaurant. Kasi mo, nag-ooperate kami ng mall. Okay naman kami kasi kami, ang own namin sa mall is the supermarket and all home. So open sila and hindi naaapekto ang benta nila. Okay? But we open also yung mga restaurants. Walang nakain sa restaurants. Kasi maraming restaurants, hindi sila magaling sa delivery. Magaling sila sa sit-in. Can you suggest to the government that i-open yung sit-in kahit 60% para magkahanap buhay yung maraming restaurants? You know, 95% of our businesses are small and micro, and 50% of the small and micro are in food. So pag hindi nyo buksan, kahit ang mga city sa restaurant, magde-declare lahat sila ng bankruptcy. So I just want to inform you that malaki problema ng mga restaurants. And because of that, there is a finding sa study din na pinadala sa amin na yung production of agriculture, 65% lang ang naipagbibili and 35% hindi na naipagbibili kasi nawala yung market nila. So, it's just a suggestion to the DTI, and what is your opinion about it? Hindi kita madinig.
Hello po. Thank you, Madam Senator. Tama po yun. Napakahalaga ng dine-in. Sa ngayon, nabubuhay sila sa takeout and deliveries. We were told that about 70% ng revenue nagagaling sa dine-in. So, napaka-importante ng dine-in. So, ganito po ang situation. Under GCQ, ngayon po pinag-aaralan yung pag-include ng dine-in. Sa Sabado po, we are visiting some fast food para upang yung general na tipo na restaurant, fast food at isang dine-in. And we will look into the application of the health protocol. Pagka ho tayo ay makumbinsi naman ho na safe po na kumain at i-implement yung minimum health protocol, we shall allow of course, we will endorse the opening of dine-in. So that kahit tama ho yung sabi nyo, kahit 50%, kasi for them to have a social distancing, we can assume a 50% capacity muna yung pupunuin unless malaki yung restaurant that can spread the table. And so ang outlook po natin, the way forward is there's a good chance na ma-include po yung dine-in. We just have to review the minimum health protocol to be applied.
I hope you will be for that. Kasi wala kaming restaurant. Pero mamamatay sila. Mamamatay. Nagsasabi na sila na magdi-declare na lang sila ng bankruptcy, and then they will lay off all their employees, which is very bad for us, the unemployment. Okay?
Tama po.
The next question is Department of Agriculture, particularly NFA. Okay.
NFA.
Yes, Hall, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to ask why you are always asking for additional budget for NFA when every year we give them 7 billion a month to buy a year to buy rice from the rice farmers and sell it to the consumer. So parang yung 7 billion is working capital. Hindi naman yon nawawala kasi nagba-buy and sell ka, di ba? So, kapital mo lang yung 7 billion but it goes back to you. Hindi mo naman sasabihin nauubos sa overhead kasi meron silang 4 billion budget for overhead beside to sa trading budget nila. At kami, nabili kami sa NFA, nagbabayad naman kami ng cash. So bakit nagkukulang yung 7 billion na yun? Okay, I just want to ask that question. Please explain to me.
Yes, Ms. Dansal of the NFA. Administrator Dansal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to all members of this whole committee of the whole. Sir, ma'am, we would like to inform you that while we are asking this amount of more than 7 billion under the mandate now under the present law, which is our Republic Act 11203, is for buffer stocking. And the maximum volume that we are supposed to be keeping in our warehouses is good for 30 days. If we consider the volume, the amount of money that should be needed to have a maximum of 30 days, which was approved by the President last November during a meeting with the Secretary of Finance.
And the working capital for 30 days. How much is the working capital for 30 days?
30 billion, Your Honor. And so
you buy and sell, di ba? You buy and sell.
Working capital on 30 days.
30 billion, Your Honor, for the procurement only of a 30-day buffer stock. So the 7 billion that is given to us to purchase billion.
But you have given ever since 7 billion a year. At hindi nyo binabalik yan sa gobyerno. It's always there with you. Ilang years na yan. I've been chairman of the Senate Committee on Agriculture. I started in 2013. That's 7 billion a year na working capital. Hindi pa nyo naipon yung 7 billion na yon dahil working capital naman yon. Hindi naman yon gastos. You buy and sell. So kung 7 years ka na may 7 billion, that's 7 times 7, that's 49 billion.
Yes, Your Honor. However, as I have said earlier, that the amount is used, of course, to procure palay, which is only good for 7 days for the 7 billion. And then we
I'm telling you, we've been giving 7 billion a year. Hindi mo naman binabalik sa gobyerno yon. So that is with you. And you don't spend it, you just use it to trade. Parang trading capital mo yon. 7 taon na ako dito, 7 billion a year, that is 49 billion. Kasi yung overhead mo naman, binabayaran din ng gobyerno at the rate of 4 billion a year. So, bakit magkukulang yung working capital?
Your Honor, it's not in the NFA, it's not only the cost of palay or the commodity that we use to spend for that. There are also operations, transactions, like, for example, the handling and the warehousing, the preservation of the stocks stored in the warehouse, the tracking and expenses that we use in transfer of stocks to the island provinces. We are spending so much also, Your Honor, for that.
When we buy from you, we get the stock from you. You don't deliver to us because I've been buying for you this pandemic and you never deliver. We get the stock from your warehouse. So
yes,
how
Your
can you
Honor, that
say
is true, but what I'm referring to as expenses for the movements of stocks, Your Honor, is the transfer of the stocks from the procurement areas, like in the region 1, 2, 3, in Batangas, they are transferring stocks to the national capital region and to the island provinces in the Bicol region, in region 4, and also in the Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and other island provinces. We don't have any tracking logistics support, and so we contract also trucks and shipping vessels to move our stocks.
I cannot understand the shipping. If you buy from Iloilo, you sell to Iloilo. If you buy from Cebu, you sell to Cebu. Why are you shipping? If you buy from Central Luzon, you sell to Metro Manila. That is tracking. And sometimes the ones who buy from you, they take care of the tracking. Like when I buy from you, I pay for the tracking. We get the rice that we are buying. So, and you have an overhead budget of 4 billion. I hope you will put your house right kasi negosyante tayo eh. Oo. So, alam natin yung cost, yung working capital, at saka yung overhead. I cannot understand why after giving you 4 billion for overhead and 7 billion for capital, every year sasabihin mo, kulang yung pera mo. Eh, ang tagal-tagal ka nang binibigyan ng ganyan eh. So, maybe you can do your accounting and show to me and explain to me why every year binibigyan ka ng 7 billion na working capital at 4 billion for overhead, palagi pa rin kulang ang pera mo. Wala ka bang naipon dyan sa binigay mo for all the years? Ako, 7 years lang ako. I'm sure they have been giving to you for all the years. So, computin mo yon at hindi ko maintindihan na working capital lang, kulang pa yung 7 billion. Eh, every year naman, binibigyan kayo at hindi nyo naman binabalik sa gobyerno yung working capital. You just continuously use it. So, please give me your computation of your cost. And so, we will see kung bakit nauubos yung 7 billion na working capital every year. So,
Yes, Your Honor, for the last
naman ng 4 billion na overhead. Oo. 4 na billion na overhead every year. They give you 11 billion. And then they give you another 6 billion to pay the interest of your debts. Oo. So the total budget NEA is 17 billion a year. So please explain to me how you use that money, and every time may usapan, kulang pa rin yung pera. Okay?
Your Honor, we use that money to procure, and then the amount in the 7 billion that the cost that we need in our operational transactions, as I have said, there are a lot of island provinces in the country, and that all island provinces are producing rice. And like, for example, as I had mentioned, that in the procurement area in Luzon, we only have the Camarines Sur in the Bicol region, and the Mindoro areas in Region 4, and Karen Valley, Sabela, Nueva Vizcaya,
When I study
Luzon. We are moving our stocks to Metro Manila, Your Honor. If you can see the movement of stocks that we are doing from these areas to NCR and to the island provinces, we spend so much amount in the transporting of these stocks. Not all the businessmen and grains, Your Honors, are moving stocks in those island provinces. Like, for example, in Batanes alone, and there's many islands, like in summer areas where we have the typhoon, Your Honors. We are moving stocks from Region 4, and we are spending this much in the transfer of our stocks to the areas that need this support from the government. Not all those rice.
Administrator Dansal, please listen to me. Administrator Dansal, please listen to me. I analyzed the production of rice all over the Philippines. Yung production ng Kamsur will only go to the Bicol region. Kasi, no, I studied that. Yung production ng Kamsur will cover the Bicol region. Yung production ng Region 4B will go to Batangas. Yung Southern Luzon. Yung production ng Central Luzon will go to Metro Manila. Hindi sila kailangan mag-transfer sa ibang lugar. Yung production ng Iloilo will go to Region 7. Oh, iminatch ko na yan eh. Nakita ko na yan eh. O ano ang need nila, ano ang production nila. You don't have to transfer islands because yung production ng Iloilo will cover yung Region 6. And maybe yung Region 7 will cover Region 7. Yung North Cotabato will cover Region 11. they don't have to leave the region. They have the production that will cover the needs of their region. If you match, they will match. Kaya huwag mo sabihin sa akin na dadalhin mo sa Metro Manila yung galing sa Visayas. Hindi. Yun ang consumption ng Region 6, yung production ng Iloilo.
Your Honors,
pag-aralan mo yung iyong negosyo. You don't have to transfer from one region to another. Kasi yung production ng region, enough for their region. You don't have to transfer. I guess we will go on and you will answer, but please put it in writing. I would request Secretary Dar to help her put this in writing and explain to me, because I cannot understand why we give 7 billion a year to you for working capital, and still sasabihin mo na kulang yung 7 billion, hindi naman mo binabalik sa amin yung 7 billion na yon.
Yung pinagbentahan.
Nasa inyo. So,
Right.
I don't want to argue here kasi hahaba tayo. We still have questions, but maybe you can explain to me in writing because I cannot understand. Okay?
All right,
Yes, Your
Senator
Honor.
Villar, thank you very much. Your time is up. But following the logic that you mentioned earlier,
yes, sir.
Administrator Tansal, para lang mas malinaw, kasi para makakuha din natin ang punto ni Senator Villar, doon sa 7 billion ninyo every year, magkano bumabalik sa inyo?
Your Honor, yung 7 billion a year ay ginagamit din namin because we roll over the money that we used to procure in last year. We were able to buy almost 15 million bags, and we were able to use 15 billion.
So you're
we
you're
roll
saying,
over.
sa pinagbentahan ninyo,
Yes, Your Honor. Sa
Ginagastos
pinagbilhan
nyo rin?
namin. Yes po. We used to buy palay in addition to the 7 billion that is given as subsidy every year, Your Honors.
well, anyway, just to clarify everything, I think Senator Villar wants you to submit in writing your answer to some of her questions.
Yes, Your
And
Honor.
then we will instruct the Senate Secretariat to give the Committee of the Whole a copy of the COA report of the NFA for the last 3 years.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next is Senator Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Villanueva, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to thank our resource persons who are here with us today. Yesterday, I didn't get the chance to ask questions to the Department of Labor and Employment. It is also interesting to note that at the end of this Committee of the Whole, we are expected to come up with the committee reports, considering that we chair two committees, Committee on Labor and Committee on Higher and Technical Education, Higher and Technical and Vocational Education. Then I would just focus on these two major departments, Mr. President. First question to Secretary Bello. And let me talk about the assistance being given to formal sector workers. Ilan po ba yung ating formal sector workers na apektado dito sa pandemic na ito? We can hear you, sir.
Yes.
Okay po.
Your Honor, okay. Your Honor, with respect to formal workers, Your Honor, there were per record and as reported by the business establishment, there were 2.6 million workers affected either by temporary closure or by the application of the flexible working arrangement, Your Honor.
Okay po. Pag-usapan po natin yan. 2.6 million ang affected. Ang tugon po natin, ito pong camp o yung COVID adjustment measure program, di po ba? Dito po sa camp, ang budget po natin is 3.2 billion at ang nakalagay po dito sa huling 8 bayanihan report ay ang actual target beneficiary is 649,000, Secretary. And dito rin po sa Bayanihan Report, 98% na po yung utilization rate. So meaning to say, out of the sinasabi yung 2.6 million affected, ang matutugunan lang is 649,000. Tama po ba?
Tama po yun, Your Honor. We were able to service 649,000 last year, Honor.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate yung mabilis na sagot, Secretary. No? Samantalang po, dito sa tinatawag na small wage business sector na tinutulungan po natin, 50 billion po yung pondo allotment. Dito ho sa camp, 3.2 billion lamang. And I think it's important to note na magkaiba po ito sapagkat yung sa camp ay para doon sa broader group of formal workers, pero dito sa small business wage subsidy, ito ay nakafocus lamang dun sa non-essential and quasi-essential affected firms. Am I correct, Your Honor?
That's correct, Your Honor. As far as our camp program is, Your Honor, we provided a one-time cash assistance of 5,000 to all workers who were not able to report to work because of the lock-in. And therefore, following the principle of no work, no pay, they were not able to receive their salaries. That's the reason why we have to extend to them a one-time cash assistance of 5,000, Your Honor.
Salamat po, Secretary. Ang nais ko lamang ipunto, yung pong SWBS na medyo matagal po yung pag-run. In fact, in the latest Bayanihan Report, nasa 78% pa rin ang kanilang utilization rate at ang kanilang target ay 2.6 million workers mula po dito sa mga affected formal sector workers. Puntahan po natin yung informal sector. Sa informal sector, ilan naman po ang workers affected?
We were able to give emergency employment, Your Honor, to 337,000 informal workers, Your Honor. And we paid them, yes.
Opo, just to cut you, no? Pero ilan po yung apektado na informal workers dito sa pandemic na ito?
Sa informal workers, Your Honor,
opo.
We only have a record of those informal workers who were extended to us by us an emergency employment of 10 days, Your Honor. And
opo.
This, opo.
Secretary, ang tanong ko lang po, ilan po dito sa mga informal workers ang apektado because of this pandemic? Para
Hindi
makita
po
natin yung denominator.
Opo. Actually, Your Honor, we can only give you the figure of the informal workers who were covered by our TUPAD program, Your Honor.
Yes, exactly. Dito po sa report ng 8 Bayanihan na report ng ating Pangulo, nakalagay po dito ang actual target beneficiaries is 309,000 workers. And right now, as we speak, 91.7% ang utilization rate. In fact, happy po kami doon sa performance ng DOLE sapagkat ang bilis po. In fact, and I'd like to put this on record, nandito ang ating mga kasamahan sa Senado, nandito rin ang ating mga economic managers, nandito rin po ang ating DBM, mismong ang United Nations, kinomend ang programang ito pong TUPAD program natin. However, if you look at the budget of TUPAD, ay napakaliit po. 1.1 billion po yung na-utilize, 1.2 billion ang budget. So ito po yung ating nais pagtuunan ng pansin sapagkat ang DOLE, ang TUPAD program, kinokomend sa buong mundo, ginagawang modelo sa bilis, sa efficiency, and since time immemorial, walang naging malaking problema o kontrobersyal. Maging ang COA report sinasabi, malinis, maayos, graft-free. In fact, this representation filed a bill to institutionalize this kind of program na pinapatupad ho ng DOLE. But the problem is, ang konti po ng pondo, no? 1.2 billion. Now, let's go to your program dito po sa mga OFWs. Puntahan po natin yung camp, yung AKAP.
AKAP. Yes, Your Honor.
Opo, ilan po ang apektado na OFWs dito sa pandemya na ito?
Your Honor, our initial estimate was 150,000 OFWs, Your Honor. And that is the reason why we requested a budget allocation of 1.5 billion to be able to give to our OFWs who will be displaced by the COVID-19 a one-time cash assistance of $200, Your Honor. On
Secretary,
the basis,
if I may, Secretary,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
Your Honor.
if I may, para lang mabilis po tayo. Pero
Opo.
ilan po yung apektado na OFWs dito sa pandemya na to? Sa inyo pong pananaw, sa inyo pong pag-aaral, ilan po yung apektado rito?
so far, Your Honor, ang nag-a-apply for assistance ay umaabot na ng kalahating milyon, Your Honor. Although there are more coming and are only prevented by the situation in the respective places, Your Honor, kagaya ng Middle East, naka-lock-out lahat ang mga lugar dyan, kagaya ng Qatar, Kuwait, Jeddah, Riyadh, naka-lock-out lahat dyan, Your Honor. That's why they could hardly move to apply for the cash assistance. Kaya marami pa po. Kaya that's the reason why, Your Honor, we requested for additional fund. Fortunately,
Thank
they gave additional fund of 1 billion. So ang tinatarget namin ngayon, Your Honor, is 250,000 OFWs, Your Honor. But again, this might go beyond 250,000, Your Honor, because there
Thank
were
you very
already. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Secretary. No, binanggit nyo po, hindi man natin nasagot yung ilan yung apektado, ang nag-apply po ay kalahating milyon na. At
Yes,
doon
Your Honor.
sa huling report po ng Bayanihan Report, 8 Bayanihan Report, ang nakalagay po dito ay 104,574 ang actual target beneficiaries, at sabi nyo nga po dadagdagan po ito para lumawak. Ang point ko lang po, and again, I'm pointing this out para marinig ng ating mga kasamahan, lalo na ng economic managers, ng ating DBM na rin, na napaka ganda nitong programa na ito para matulungan yung mga naapektuhan na ating mga bagong bayani, and yet ang konti po ng pondo. Samantalang dun sa iba, ang lalaki ng pondo, ang bagal po kumilos. So sana makita po natin ito. Now, because we don't have enough time, Secretary, no, let me go to another issue that I'd like to raise. Doon po sa DOF's recommendation, binanggit po nila that they plan to do mass hiring. I hope and pray, and this is our recommendation, na marinig po kayo na meron po kayong mga proyekto. Nandyan po yung tupad, nandyan po yung AKAP, nandyan din po yung camp. Sana po, and I would support the statements made by our distinguished colleague, Senator Cynthia Villar, kesa ibigay natin yung pondo, let's give them emergency employment. Let's give them something to do para makatulong din po sila sa mga community. I hope na marinig din po kayo at magsalita po kayo tungkol po dito sa mass hiring na gagawin. Now, let me go to this particular issue, no, na very important. Yung pong issue ng wage reduction as part of structural reforms. Doon po sa proposed economic recovery program ng Department of Finance, yung PH Progreso o Philippine Program for Recovery with Equity and Solidarity, ipinopropose po doon na mag-impose ng temporary and targeted wage reductions to keep jobs and labor flexibility to protect employment and not jobs as structural reforms. Pag sinabi nating jobs, it refers to activities or tasks, while employment refers to a person, no? Ang tanong po, Secretary, ano ang position niyo po dito? Kasi it's a growing concern, especially ito'y maaaring magamit as a tool for increasing labor market flexibility, pero it might move away, Mr. Secretary, from ensuring yung pangarap nating dalawa at ng marami sa atin na security of tenure in favor of multiple workers' job sharing scheme.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. When it comes to the fixing of the minimum wage, Your Honor, it is very clear that that is a legislative authority. It is only Congress that can fix the minimum wage, and it is therefore only Congress that can reduce our wage benefits. However, Your Honor, the law allows both worker and the employer some autonomy in agreeing on some reduction of wage-related benefits. Like for example, Your Honor, they can agree na yung vacation leave nila ay bawas-bawasan, yung sick leave nila bawas-bawasan, yung transportation allowance nila bawas-bawasan, at saka yung rice allowance, pwedeng, it can be the consensus between the worker and the employer na bawasan nila. But never can they agree to lower the minimum wage, Your Honor.
Well, importante po yun, Secretary. And perhaps the next question that I'd like to raise is there a grievance mechanism in place in case, for example, an employee feels that his or her consent was not properly obtained, Mr. Secretary?
Meron pong ganun, Your Honor. Meron pong ganun.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Secretary. At yung another issue, yung deployment naman on restrictions of Filipino healthcare workers. Yung situation po ngayon of our healthcare workers whose deployment abroad is currently suspended. Can you give us an update and perhaps what kind of assistance we have provided to those healthcare workers na hanggang ngayon ay hindi or unable to find job locally?
Your Honor, there is a governing board resolution of the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. And this resolution suspended the deployment of nurses and medical workers to foreign destination, Your Honor. However, Your Honor, this resolution was subjected to an exception. And the exception are those nurses or medical workers who completed their deployment papers such as verified contract of employment, their OEC or the overseas employment certificate, passport and everything, Your Honor, and they can be allowed to leave the country as exception to the governing board resolution that they suspending the deployment of nurses and medical workers, Your Honor.
Sir Secretary, yung hindi po makaalis, natulungan po ba natin sila, na-coordinate natin sila, for example, sa DOH? And how many healthcare workers were recruited by our public hospitals or private hospitals? Meron po ba?
Meron po, Your Honor, because yung bananggit ko kanina na 10,000 cash assistance covered yung mga manggagawa na nakuha na lahat yung mga papeles nila, kompleto na nila, pero inabutan sila ng lock-in. So we extended to them, or they are entitled to the cash assistance of 10,000 peso, equivalent of the $200, Your Honor.
Last question po before I go to CHED, Secretary. No?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sa risk of spreading COVID-19 in workplaces, no? Una, enough po ba yung ating capacity para ma-check at masiguro na tumatalima sila dun sa ating OSH standards? Pangalawa po, gusto kong itanong, nakonsulta ho ba kayo doon sa pagbubukas ng industriya, for example, ng Pogo? Kasi kayo mismo, nung mga nakaraang hearing natin, ang laki at very strong yung inyong reservation about these Pogos. Because I remember in the last hearing, you made mention that 6,678 illegal workers ang inyong nahuli na nagtatrabaho sa mga legitimate PAGCOR accredited Pogos po, no? And just recently po, in a few weeks po, no? April 24 for instance, Parañaque, 53 na naman yung arrested, may 5 barel, mayroong 1.3 million cash. Nung May 6 sa Makati, 73 ang arrested na naman. Nung May 14, latest, sa Las Piñas naman po, 265 were arrested, 6.4 million cold cash yung nakuha. Tanong ko lang po, kasama po ba kayo dito sa kinonsulta bago i-open up at sabihin din, lalo nang yung sinabi nila na ito ay kina-classify yung POGO as BPO or business process outsourcing.
To be very candid, Your Honor, we really had reservation about the resumption of the operation of POGO. But when they assured us, Your Honor, that they will comply with all the requirements prescribed for the operation of POGO, we gave our go signal, Your Honor, because first, we made sure that POGO operators, meaning workers in the POGO industry, should not displace any Filipino worker. In other words, ang bibigyan lang namin ng alien employment permit ay yung mga dayuhan na ang kaya nilang trabaho ay hindi kaya ng Pilipino. At pangalawa, tinitiyak namin po na bago namin sila bigyan ng AEP, ay kailangan magbayad sila ng buwis, yung tamang buwis, Your Honor. And we will not allow sub-franchises, Your Honor. Kailangan yung bibigyan namin ay yung mga nabigyan lamang ng original franchise by PAGCOR, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Secretary.
Please wind up.
Can I just have one question to Ched, Mr. Senate President, considering that I also chair higher and technical education? Just one question.
Go ahead with the question, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Secretary Belio. But just the same, you made mention kung magbabayad sila ng buwis. Last year, almost 50 billion pesos yung hindi nila nabayarang buwis. 6,678 yung nahuli nyo na illegal workers. So I have strong reservations sa pagbubukas po ng POGO. Sa CHED po, Secretary De Vera, magandang hapon po. Gusto ko lang pong pa-reactin kayo kasi a few days ago, dito po sa ating Committee of the Whole, umapila po kami. Umapila kami kay Secretary Abisado, together with Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Angara, tungkol po doon sa DBM's National Budget Circular 580, no? Where SUCs will have to discontinue their program appropriations for capital outlay amounting to 17.93 billion. Gusto lang natin malaman, Secretary, kung papaano makaka-apekto ito sa ating mga state colleges and universities. And at the same time, because I only have one question left, other than that, pwede ho bang bigyan na rin kami ng update tungkol po doon sa feedback and comments with regard to the grading system adopted by HEIs to complete the assessment of students amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. At last but not the least, yung pong questions na marami sa atin with regards to waiving entrance examinations in the light of risk associated with the mass gatherings, kasi yung some SUCs are proposing to waive the entrance examinations and use the applicants' general weight average as basis for deciding on their admission. I'd like to get your comments on this, Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Villanueva. Chairman De Vera, you may respond, and then we will go to the next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simulan ko doon sa huling tanong, yung sa entrance exam. Paiba-iba ho per state university. Ang marami ay ibe-base na lang yung admission dun sa grades ng students at saka yung course na ina-applyan nila. Meron ding ilan na merong kombinasyon ng online test at saka physical test. Nasusunduin sila sa mga munisipyo by batch, dadalhin sila sa eskwelahan para kumuha ng test. So depende ho dun sa conditions on the ground at saka yung availability ng transport. But the majority are waiving the admission test for the state universities and colleges. Yung tanong ho tungkol dun sa numeric grade, ilan lang ho yung universities na gumawa ng pass grade. Kasama ho dyan ang Mindanao State University, ang pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila at hindi ko pa alam yung pangatlo, basta konti lang. Almost all adopted a numeric grade. Hindi ho kasi pwede yung mass promotion for three very basic reasons. Number one, it assumes na walang basis to compute grades. But 74% of private universities are using the old calendar, so they end their semester in March. And when the ECQ was applied, they had more than enough basis to give numeric grades. Yun namang mga tinamaan ng ECQ, predominantly state universities and colleges, ang ginawa nila, gumawa sila ng policy na the students are given 1 year to complete the requirements. Many universities adopted a no-fail policy. So they bent back and extended the period to do grades para hindi agrabyado yung mga estudyante. Doon ho sa 35% non-release ng DBM, the universities are adjusting by giving up certain capital outlay project. Kasi merong nakalagay na 35% hindi na i-release, yung mga projects nila, titignan nila yung equivalent ng 35%, yun na yung ifo-forgo nila for this year, and they will propose that in the NEP for next year. Yung 10% na reduction sa MOOE, ang tatamaan ho sa mga state universities at colleges nito, mga cuts, ay yung pangbayad nila sa mga part-time faculty. Kasi ang marami dito ay no work, no pay. So if they're not able to teach, then they don't get paid. Marami-rami ho yan. There are about 50,000 faculty members in all higher education institutions that are part-timers. So medyo malaki ho yung epekto niyan.
Chairman, huwag tayong mag-give up. Huwag tayong mag-give up. Nandyan si DBM Secretary Abisado at uma-appeal pa tayo. Yan, nakangiti si Secretary.
Alright, Chairman De Vera.
Hindi ko alam yung huling tanong, hindi ko alam yung last question ni Secretary Villanueva kung nasagot ko na lahat.
Yeah, nasagot naman po lahat. What I'm saying is huwag tayong mag-give up because si Sec Abisado will nag-appeal tayo at kasama natin yung mga senador. Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Maraming salamat,
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is recognized. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, SP. First of all, I'd like to commend Secretary Cusi and Chairperson De Manadera for instituting a lot of proactive measures to make sure that the power sector is stable and constant delivery of electricity to our homes is assured. Alam niyo, mga kasama, for the last 2 months, I've been meeting the secretary and the chairperson and also some of the stakeholders. And kahit na maaga pa lang, nag-issue na ho sila ng mga advisories and circulars to make sure that tuloy-tuloy po yung daloy ng kuryente ho sa atin. Ang importante ho dito, kahit na ho nasa panahon tayo ng pandemya, tuloy-tuloy po yung daloy ng kuryente natin. And I'd like to commend both of them for working together and also for being very proactive. Pero itong pagkasaya ho natin, medyo nasira ho is last week dahil nga maraming nagkaroon ng bill shock. Nung lumabas po yung may billing ho nila, biglang tumalon po yung bill ho nila. And let me just share, no? Meron akong, I don't know if everyone can see this. Oops. Hindi ho ito eh. Anyways, do I stop this? Sorry po nagkaka-technical ako. SP. Ito po yung billing ng Meralco na for the month of May biglang tumalon. And marami hong nagalit, marami hong na-confuse, maraming nahilo. Sinasabi nga ho nila, wala na nga ho sila trabaho tapos babayaran pa ng halos 3 times yung kanilang bill. So I've communicated this with ERC and the DOE, and I know the DOE has instituted some fact-finding. I'd like to ask Secretary Cusi kung ano yung mga findings nila dito at kung ano yung ginagawa. And for the information of our televiewers, no, lahat ng mga constituents ho natin, marami ho talaga, Secretary, hindi naintindihan kung bakit ho nagkaganito. So please explain in very layman, in very simple terms, kung paano po i-compute yung bill at ano po yung mga naging findings ho ninyo.
Good afternoon, Your Honors, and with the permission of the Senate President. Kanina pong umaga, nakausap po si President Rey Espinosa ng Meralco. Kasi nga po, nung last week, nung Friday, sinulatan ko nga po ang Meralco dahil sa dami na natanggap naming complaints dito po sa bill shock na sinasabi nga po ninyo, Senator. And ang nakita po namin is that yung March and April na bill, which were estimated, no po, tapos ngayon po sila nagkaroon ng meter reading. Initially, napansin namin na yung meter reading po, yung bill ng May is an accumulation of the previous months. Initially po, no, yun ang gano'n nangyayari. So, kanina po, sinabi po sa akin ni Mr. Rey Espinosa, it's a question of the information, issue of information and presentation on the bill kaya nagka-problema. So hinihintay ko lang po yung formal reply po ng Meralco dun sa sulat namin sa kanila, and in due time, maybe by tomorrow, we'll be able to be more definite kung ano po ang nangyari sa bill shock na dumating po sa atin. Mr.
Secretary, based on your initial inquiry, meron ba hong paglabis ang pag-computation? Because I know for a fact, binasa ko po yung advisory ng ERC and DOE, and they're very clear. No? But of course, these are very technical readings. Importante ho na intindihan mo ng consumers natin ano binabayaran nila. Talagang nakakagulat naman ho pag nakita nyo. But based on your initial inquiry, can the department assure the public that tama yung kanilang pag-compute dito po sa kanilang pagniningil?
That is something that we can assure the public that we at DOE, ERC, will go into the bottom of this problem, no? How they arrive at those computation. So ngayon nga po, dinidetalya, tinitingnan natin kung ano po nga yung naging problema. And initially, ang makukuha po natin is para pong yung May na bill is an accumulation. Kasi based on meter reading na po. Yung pag meter reading nila po, tumigil po sila nung March reading. So pag-read po nila, March, April, May ang nabasa siguro po nila. So we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, and sabi nga po natin, iniimbestigahan po natin ito, and we will await for their reply tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
Kasi based doon po sa advisory po ng ERC, it's very clear, no? 3 months average of the past. No? And kaya nga pag tinitignan ko ho dito, meron ho siyang